Just bear with me for half a second here too.
Okay, you're ready to go, Catherine.
Okay, I'm just pulling up my agenda on my phone because I can't seem to make it work otherwise. I have it open, but I can't see it. So hang on. It's funny how technology seems to be working until you join a group. And then, yeah.
That's true.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so thanks everybody for meeting in December. That's unusual and much appreciated because we have the official plan to talk about today. And now, Cheryl, I'm looking to you because I'm not really sure how we move forward on this. I know that we all submitted our comments and our recommendations individually, and we all sort of commented on each other's. So where do we go from there?
Did you provide, and you provided that to Jordan, right? Did you email that to Jordan yet?
I guess we did not.
Okay, so that's forthcoming.
Sorry, Jordan.
So that's okay. So he'll get that.
Okay.
So this is officially an opportunity, like if you have questions, so you don't have to repeat yourself in terms of the comments that he's going to get.
Okay.
Like that's no
Yeah.
problem.
Okay.
But if anybody had questions, and I think Heather actually had a question or two,
Mhm.
then you can speak to that immediately with Jordan here. And then
Okay.
I think probably for the record, Tammy would just like to, be able to say for the record that, like, I don't think you need to make a motion, but just for the record that you guys endorse this plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's just because the minutes that Tammy takes, like they're not just a matter of public record, but they're also they go to council, right?
Right.
So that's and they do read the stuff that you guys talk about, and I know this because sometimes I get really strange emails from council members that say, "Hey, I saw this in the minutes, and I'm just wondering what that was about," and then I have to kind of elaborate.
Oh, okay.
So I do know they read they read your minutes, right? So
Okay.
so it's important for them because they're going to have to approve this plan that Jordan's been working so hard on, and others in the planning department, right? But Jordan's been losing weight and losing sleep over it. So, like, yeah. Oh,
Jordan, can I help with the losing weight part? I'm just, I don't need to lose any more sleep, but so should I send the minutes now, or do we just need, or the comments now, or do we just
I think just do questions. So like
to talk
we can,
about it?
yeah.
Okay.
So you can do you can email, like that's just kind of administrative. You can email that to Jordan like later today or tomorrow, whatever, just so that he has that. But if anybody has immediate questions, that way he's here and he can address them, and then it's more efficient than going back and forth.
Okay, that's good. So I see that we have two questions here, and I'm going to start with Heather because I know that she did have some questions in her email. So Heather, take the floor.
So just going through the questions from the email, there were three sort of key questions I had. One was around the wonderful supported housing continuum that you have in the urban design guide. I think it's in the official plan, sorry. And you've got that diagram with all the different elements on the housing continuum. But I noticed that there's no marker for supported housing. We've got markers for affordable housing, which is amazing, but both supported housing and accessible housing seem to be left off of that list as specific elements. And I'm particularly concerned about the supported housing because in Ontario, we have wait lists currently of over 25 years for supported housing. And so if you imagine yourself as a parent who has a child with a severe disability sometime between late 30s, early 40s, which is very typical these days. And then that child comes of age and you're late 50s, early 60s. And that's the point at which you're allowed to put them on the housing wait list. What happens to those children if we don't start to think about supported housing? Particularly as our baby boomers are aging, a lot of them have kept their children at home, but they're not going to be able to continue to do that for much longer. So how do we address that? That's question one, and I'll let you answer that. And then I have more.
Sure. Thanks for the question. It's a great question, and very much part of a ongoing and live discussion around how the city is going to be tackling affordable housing, and whether the draft kind of provisions that we've made in the OP are enough, are the right ones, are anyways, it's a live dialogue at this point. I think for the rationale of this question in particular, a lot of the social and kind of supportive housing kind of segments of that spectrum are really in the purview of the county. So that's really where we kind of wanted to focus on,
Can I just interject one thing? And you can maybe talk us through this, Jordan. So because the county is the provincial manager for social housing for our region. Now I know they just recently formalized their update to the OP. Does our OP and their OP, do they align on these kinds of gray areas where they're providing service for stuff in our city? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I think
Because maybe that's where Heather's going to get her
discussions
answers.
that I think are happening.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay.
And so we're trying to create, through our official plan, create policies where we can be most effective without overlapping services or
Yeah, I guess my only thought with it was because you were including the affordable housing piece, which is also, I understand, a county element to a certain extent, just that it get noted as a needed element in the continuum of housing, because those with intellectual delays they're just not on the map. And I think if we start to see it written down regularly, it will help us to bring them back onto the map. Because my understanding is that
and maybe through our language, we can even just suggest, that these are all important parts of that spectrum.
Yeah.
But that for the purposes of this official plan, these policies are where the city will focus, and through the Simcoe County's official plan or affordable housing strategy, these things will be addressed. And just make it clear which, who's responsible for what and what we're trying to achieve.
Definitely. No, I think that would be great. I just wanted to make sure that that they were noted as an element of what was needed, because we had so many of the other facets in there, which I really appreciated seeing. The second question I had was to do with structured parking. And I wanted to know whether there will be signage for barrier-free parking that includes signage for van accessible stalls. Because those of us who have side ramps that need to deploy in any parking area other than the brand new plazas, that's a real struggle here in Barrie. It's a particularly huge struggle in the downtown area. There's basically nowhere downtown closer than the library that I can park and get my ramp out safely, and guarantee I'll be able to get it out again when I come back to it, which is always fun.
Yeah. So for this one, I agree. We can probably strengthen some of the language in the OP to maybe flag some key issues that you're raising. I think where it's going to be most effective will be kind of in the implementation side of things, which will be like our engineering standards for sidewalk widths and for kind of some of those public realm elements. And like what's coming to mind right now is the Rivera development application at Collier, where we are relocating one of the bus stops from the west side of Owen on the south side of Collier to the east in front of the new development, so that we can expand that landing area and create an accessible transit stop. And that was done through kind of the development review process. And so I think it was noted there that our standards could probably be updated.
So I just gonna interject here. So the problem with this is, Heather, unfortunately, you're not going to see a lot of change in the downtown area with regards to this immediately. And the reason why is because this is a legislation, it's provincial legislation, because currently right now the city of Barrie has a requirement to anytime a van accessible stall is created, the MTO requires, the Highway Traffic Act requires, and so does our zoning bylaw, because we're required to follow that provincial legislation, that any van accessible space has to be signed with a sign that says accessible, and then parentheses, van accessible. Like they must. It's not like a shall. It's not like a if you'd like to. It's a you must. The problem is that the legislation, it's on a go forward basis, right? So we're not going to go and change all the existing spaces that are there until we have to.
Yeah.
And so new
Currently-
development, new development, you'll see that. You're not going to see that in Old Barrie, at least not quickly.
I'm just noting
Yeah, okay,
for the record,
No,
there's
you're absolutely right.
no space in the downtown core, and that's something that would be worth being mindful of as whatever happens with Grant McEwen parking lot and other spaces come up. Like that's just something I wanted to.
I think Grant McEachern is actually going to become a building. I don't think it's going to be a parking lot for decades, like maybe for the next 10 years. But like I my understanding is that eventually, because that's primo property, that eventually that will be a commercial residential facility. Eventually is what that will be. But we have a planner here who can talk to that if we want, because I don't know the skinny on that. So.
You need a higher up planner, I think, to get the skinny. But
we're just backing up with requests to comment here. I want to ask Carolyn first if she wants to speak to this parking issue, and if not, I think Louise does. Am I right, Louise? Okay, so we'll hold on, Carolyn, for a minute and let Louise go ahead. Comment, go ahead. You're on mute. Still on mute. There you go. No, try it again.
still
No.
on mute.
We can't hear you, Louise.
You're on mute.
Still on mute, Louise.
There we go.
Am I
There.
on now?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Yay.
Let's see, it's my 4th Zoom meeting today, so I don't know what I'm doing. Anyways, I am dependent on disabled parking downtown, especially when there's ice and snow. So first of all, I want to say that I was able to go to Joshua's. Last week, there was a bit of snow, but I was able to park almost in front of it. And that's the first time I've been able to do that on my own downtown without having to ask somebody to go with me, because the sidewalk was slanted and the parking, the snowbanks, whatever. Anyways, there are 5 disabled spots in the downtown area, from the library over to, I guess the Maple Avenue, and they're not on Dunlop. They're on the side streets. And I'll tell you that sometimes I have to go, if I want to go to the Maddie Center, I have to go really early, because they're all with 5 spots on the population of Barrie, and people with stickers, it's really hard to get a spot. So I know you're not into numbers in the official plan or the urban design, but it just really to be emphasized that there be some look at the number of spots and location compared to the percentage of people with disabilities in the city of Barrie.
Yeah, that's a good point, Louise.
So I'm just jotting
Okay.
some of this down too.
And I forget what percentages of the population they say is disabled now, Cheryl? 5?
And no, it's so in Ontario,
Yeah.
1 in 7 individuals
1
in
in 7.
Ontario. Yeah.
And that number is just going to grow as we all get older.
Just okay, so I just want to make sure that you guys know a few things here. So if you have an MTO issued accessible parking placard, you can park anywhere. You don't have to park at a space that's designated as like so someone like Heather, you know, who needs a van accessible spot, that's, you know, you're not going to get that in just random spots. But so accessible parking is actually technically developed and meant for, and I apologize. There's a cat walking down the street, and my dogs don't like cats apparently. So, when you see me laughing when I'm on mute, that's why. It's because they're bananas. Anyway, so accessible parking is actually designed, and the city's true responsibility related to accessible parking is for accessible spaces in off-street parking lots. So on-street parking, technically we don't have an obligation to include accessible parking spaces in our on-street parking facility, like, you know, calculations. So we do because community members like them, but technically an accessible on-street parking space is no different than any other space like that's designated on the street. So the only thing that it may be is it may be closer to a specific place. Like we just last year put 2 spaces at Maple by the Service Ontario. And that was, took a long time to ratify those spaces. And we did have a space just recently that was ratified right in front of the BMO on Collier Street. And there's another one across the way on right in front of the McLaren, and there is one also or 2 on Mulcaster, at the bottom of Mulcaster. We will never put any at the top of Mulcaster because the grade is just too steep. So we did do one spot, designate a spot on Dunlop Street once upon a time before the reconstruction of Meridian Place, and it was located by the cenotaph. But technically, like, we do that, and I'm usually the one that pushes staff to do that, and it's usually like quite an ordeal because technically we don't do that, and technically municipalities don't have to do that from a legislative perspective. So like we will consider it always, and you know, as I'm here, I'm advocating for you, but it's not technically something that the city does.
Okay, I'd just like to say that technically it would be very hard for some of us to walk down the hill from the parking garage on Collier because of the hills in Barrie, right?
I absolutely
That's one of the
agree.
big issues,
Which is why, which is one of the reasons why I get to bully people into
Right.
allowing me to do this.
Oh, thank you.
But one of these days they're going to say the buck's got to stop, Cheryl, because this is the reality. So like I think our staff generally want to do everything they can to improve accessibility. I'm really happy to say that we have some awesome staff members that believe in this. But it's one of those things where like if you go to other municipalities, you may see some municipalities in Ontario are like us, and they have some on-street accessible parking noted, but a lot of municipalities say no to accessible on-street parking.
Mhm.
So it's, you know what? It's so
Yeah.
controversial. I'm going to get egged
Yeah.
one of these days, you know.
Thank you.
Okay. Carolyn, I know you've been patiently waiting. Would you like to go ahead with your question?
Well, I can, but I do know, Heather, that you had a third point, and I'm cognizant of your time. So maybe, Catherine, we could let Heather go ahead.
Oh, okay, Heather, it's up to you.
If that's okay with you, Carolyn, I didn't want to bully everyone through all my annoying points, but I do have one more for you, Jordan, and it's around the building access. This is from the Citywide Urban Design Guide 2.11b, I think. If ground floors of buildings are not meant to be raised higher than 1 meter above the average ground level elevation, that's still higher than I could ever get up from my wheelchair. So my question is there a requirement for those entrances to be ramped? Because I know we have a very big challenge on our hands trying to convince the businesses that are already there to add ramps for us. So I just wonder whether that's going to be a requirement moving forward.
So I'm terribly sorry, but I just had the Cheryl experience with my dog, and I didn't hear a word of what you just said. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I can repeat myself. It's written
Could you
down.
please
That
just
makes it
maybe
better.
give me the I caught some bits and pieces about kind of the building entrances, but if you could repeat, that would be appreciated.
Yeah. So it says that ground floors of buildings are not meant to be raised higher than 1 meter above the average ground level elevation, which is great, but I'm still not going to be able to get into that building with my wheelchair. So since we've had a lot of issues with existing buildings trying to convince them to add ramps, is there going to be a requirement for those entrances to be ramped from the beginning?
So I think we do have sorry, I don't have the design guidelines open in front of me, but I think we try to encourage them to be at grade, like wherever possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then where that's not, it can be no higher than that 1 meter that you're talking about.
Yeah, it just wasn't clear whether, if it wasn't possible and it went up to a meter, whether there was a subsequent add-on of now you must build a ramp.
Are these residential or commercial
This
buildings,
is
Heather?
commercial.
Commercial. I think the building code has
Yeah.
a requirement for a minimum of one accessible entrance, right?
Yeah, I thought so. It just wasn't clear. So that was why it was a question.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's something that we'll want to make sure, like if we make that statement, that like everything should be at grade wherever possible, but you have this allowance to do the 1.7 meters, like, but that's not irrespective of the building code. We're not saying that they can't follow, because the building code will insist that they have
It'll
that.
always supersede, for sure.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just whether it needs to be reinforced in the design document, just to make sure that everyone is on the same page and it doesn't get forgotten because somebody didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so maybe it'll say something like, in addition to the required accessible entrances or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Considerations should be made for.
Like I know in other pieces, like not this work that Jordan's doing, but say in other things that the city is involved in, like say for example, road work, right? Often, like what they'll say is like, this is the design guideline that we want or that we're accepting, and you as the developer, whoever, must follow all OPSDs and BSDs. So the province is ahead of, like Barrie we have our own design guidelines, but the province kind of is above that. So for this, I imagine like Barrie has its own urban design guidelines, and that we're recommending because we want our community to look and reflect a certain kind of thing. But in addition to that, anybody who's building in our city also has to follow the building code.
Yeah.
Is that kind of like how it is, Jordan? Like,
Yeah, I think.
okay.
And I knew that was how it was. It was just, do we need to reiterate that?
I think we do. I think that's a good point. Thank you for raising that. Yeah.
I think it's a great point, and one that we've been hearing from actually a number of stakeholders is like, where do some policies end and where do the guidelines pick up? And so that break between OBC requirements and kind of our guidelines, I think we just need to clarify that through our language. So it's a great point.
That's a great point.
I will leave it there for the sake of time, but I will just say, Jordan, Catherine has the rest of my comments, and if any of them aren't clear and I can help clarify, I want to make it very clear that I'm thrilled with what you've done. I just went through it with my finest fine-tooth comb to try to make sure we weren't missing anything. So it's just that, and it's an act of respect and appreciation, nothing else.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for taking the time and energy to go. I know it's no small feat to go through like 500 pages of documents and with a fine-tooth comb. So we appreciate the feedback as well.
It was 526, wasn't it? I'm just thinking.
But who's counting?
Counting, yeah, that's right.
Okay, Carolyn.
Okay, I was very impressed by it, Jordan, and my two comments were overview comments. One was, I wondered if there could be more of the publicity pictures that were there, could include people with disabilities.
That was great, yeah, representation.
Yeah,
sure.
They were inclusive of different ethnic groups, etc., but I didn't see any with disabilities. So that was one point. My other point was that as I'm reading it as a neophyte, really, pedestrians and cyclists were the terms used throughout. And to me, that just seemed unusual, because if you're in a wheelchair, you're not a cyclist and you're not a pedestrian. So in terms of nomenclature,
but I'm challenging that. Are you? I think we should hear from like Heather, like Carolyn, do you use a wheelchair?
No, I don't. But if I may just finish this.
Okay, because I have people that I know who are in wheelchairs that call themselves pedestrians. So I think that's a debate we can have.
Okay, yeah, we'll just let Carolyn finish. Yeah.
Okay, so again, it was an overview, and I wondered, rather than use the terms pedestrian or cyclist, if you might consider using the word citizens. Now, Heather wasn't very, I think you had a comment about the word citizens, and you were looking at residents, Heather. My concern about residents is that there will be a lot of people using the facilities who are not residents of Barrie, and they're coming from
visitors.
Mm-hmm. So they were just my two overview points that I wanted to share with the committee.
Okay, yeah, and good points. Good points. Heather, do you want to comment to that?
I think
we're putting you on the spot. I apologize.
Yeah, sorry, Heather.
The idea of pedestrian doesn't bother me one way or the other, but there is a challenging element to being a power wheelchair user. My power chair goes at 10 kilometers an hour. It's hard to know where to be in a lot of streetscape spaces. And that's just a general, like, we haven't really like mentally figured out where where we end up. If I'm on the side of the road, then cars honk at me and get upset
Yes.
at me. If I'm on the sidewalk, pedestrians shout at me and get, very upset at me. So it is difficult to know where to place yourself.
But you're not a car, so please
No,
don't put yourself on the road.
Yes.
And like, so the way I've always understood it from various individuals who have a variety of different mobility equipment and devices is that like your wheelchair, whether it's a power wheelchair or a manual wheelchair, it's like my legs.
Yes,
So
definitely.
like it allows you to be ambulatory and mobile. So
Yes.
whether I'm jogging alongside of you to keep up with you at your 10, kilometers an hour, which is crazy to me, or is it 10 miles? Did you say 10 miles or 10 kilometers?
10 kilometers an
10
hour.
kilometers. Yeah. So that's so it doesn't matter. Like you have a right to be in the pedestrian right away, just the same as I do.
I actually end up on the road more often because of the state of the sidewalks in the city.
Okay. Well, please don't do that, because we've had people like legitimately die from being in their wheelchairs in this city on the sidewalk. So please don't do that.
I
Or
only
not on the
do it
sidewalk. I mean, on the road, on the
side
road. Yeah,
streets.
on the road. So like, don't do that. So.
And so I can say, like, from the author's perspective, I think pedestrian was inclusive of people of different abilities. So, potentially just to avoid some of the citizens, residents, and visitors like silos, maybe it's upfront we create like a definition that includes all pedestrians and kind of
I think it's a
outlines that.
great conversation, Carolyn. Thank you for raising that. Because like
Yes, I think it's a good point.
I don't think I think about that normally, but I don't think we're going to be solving that. But perhaps maybe the thing to do, Jordan, it is like have a definition section and include citizens, residents, like I don't know, maybe you want it consistent, but I don't know how to do that.
Users?
I feel like if you in using Carolyn's first point about the inclusive images, if we define pedestrians and we have an image that includes a power wheelchair user and someone with a white cane and a guide dog and someone pushing a stroller and someone walking or whatever, then we've very effectively said this is what we mean by pedestrian. And I think that it's kind of interesting to me, Carolyn, that you brought up both points, because I feel like the one may be the solution to the other.
Yeah.
It's interesting from my perspective. I commented, I used to run long distance in Toronto on the trails. And so for me, I found the pedestrian and cyclist nomenclature very important, because the cyclists thought that they owned the paths. And so it was very difficult for anyone who's jogging or walking or strollering or anything that isn't a 10-speed bike to use the trails, because they were in danger, and the trails were meant for both pedestrians and cyclists. So that's how I came to it. And I know I haven't really come across it to the same extent here in Barrie, but in Toronto it was crazy. Like you took your life in your hands when you went out on those city trails. So that was my point. But yeah, maybe we can, I think Carolyn's made a really good point that we can actually think about. Comments? Anyone? Any further comments? Yeah, so, maybe it's something that we do look at. And I think Heather described it very well with all those different people, different types of people that we can call those people pedestrians. And goodness knows, the cyclists, I don't know. That's all. And I'm one too, but I just have a little fear of them coming up behind me and running me over. But that's me. That's me. Yes, Louise.
I guess I just didn't mention, I did in my memo though, that I read all, whatever, 56, how many, 56 pages, ho, ho, ho.
Good.
And I was very impressed with the plan and the urban design guidelines. Yeah, I did. I think the fact that we didn't have, terribly a lot of comments speaks to that. So I was impressed with the work that's gone in. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I'd like to say thank you to Jordan, because it's remarkable in its forward thinking and in inclusivity. So a lot of people did some very good work.
That's
So
right.
thank
I
you.
will be sure to pass on these very kind messages to the whole team tomorrow. And we are certainly looking forward to receiving your feedback and comments. And I will say, it sounds like you guys have all done your review. There may be a few outstanding items that you might want to coordinate just based on tonight's discussion. There is no real well, there's a bit of a rush, but not a real rush. We've got until, I think the deadline's the 22nd. If it's a little bit after that, it's not going to be the end of the world. And, if you want.
I think for a comment, I think the things that are kind of kind of up in the air right now, I think everybody's comments are solid comments, but I'm thinking, Caroline's idea of having representation, greater representation of people with disabilities, that's a finishing that I think we can absolutely work to accomplish. That's not, you don't need to do that. You don't need to have that worked out by the 21st is what I'm saying, right?
No. Yeah. So
right.
from
then
our
just
next steps, we'll take these comments.
Yeah, and incorporate them as you can.
Draft.
And I'm just thinking because that's a really great idea. Heather's idea of, even if on the page or pages that you're working out your definitions, if obviously you want representation throughout the entire document, but if you're also intentional about beefing up your representation on those pages that you're doing the definition, then implicitly, semiotics kind of basically, will lead a human brain to read those definitions and take in that image and be like, hey, it's everybody. And that's what that means, so I think that's really I think that's a really interesting way of doing that. So in addition to all their solid comments that you're going to get via email and the discussion we've had tonight, that's just I think that I don't know, gold star that, Jordan. that I think we
Yeah.
yeah.
I guarantee you that this committee will not be holding you up on the 22nd.
And no, for sure. And I mean, some of that is formatting. I don't want to just call it formatting.
Yeah. But that's down the line. Yeah.
Yeah, these are very preliminary draft documents. So I mean, the formatting was not that great. I mean, the numbering in the urban design guidelines is just every time I look at it. But
and before anybody gets excited, I've already talked to the communications and marketing person who's in charge of the formatting of this this actual document, and I have said to him that I will pay for my budget if he doesn't have money to do it, to make the document accessible. So the document itself will be accessible in addition to everything that they're talking about. Not only because we have to by law, but because it's a really important document to make accessible. So
I was actually just thinking, Cheryl, about how we make this accessible for folks with intellectual delays and brain injuries and things like that.
Oh, there's a
because
way. We can
it's
talk
such
about
a-
that.
It's such
Yeah.
a complex document, but there has
Mhm.
to be some way to get the basics at least
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
accessible for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. Exciting stuff. So any other comments, or do we just move forward?
I think you
with-
you endorse you endorse it, and then you say, "Have a great night, Jordan. Thanks."
Well,
Okay.
we endorse it. We say we'll send you the rest of the comments that we
Yes.
didn't bug you with tonight.
Yes, he'll
And
get
then
it.
we say
Yeah,
have a great night.
no, yeah, he'll get that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
so
and-
how's that? Can I just have a show of hands for endorsement? Okay, well, I think we've endorsed this, Jordan, and thank you. And I will send you the documents. And not only I think it can be said that not only do we endorse it, but we really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
Likewise, and thank you all again for all of your efforts and time to really sink in to do a proper review. We as a policy team in the planning department really appreciate it. It'll go a long way to make a much better and more comprehensive vision for the city moving forward, which we're really excited about.
Mhm.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jordan.
All right.
Anytime.
Thanks, everyone.
Jordan.
Have a good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have another item on the agenda.
Yes, just one, and I promise I won't keep you long. And I'm also cognizant of time because I need quorum, and if Heather leaves, we won't have quorum. So, I don't know. You may or may not know the province has issued an Inclusive Communities grant
Mhm.
now, and the Inclusive Communities grant is specifically to help municipalities advance their age-friendly community planning efforts, and to increase opportunities in a time of COVID for connection and engagement through technology for seniors and persons with disabilities. And so the city of Barrie, as you may or may not know, engaged in an age-friendly community planning process several years ago. We applied for a grant in 2015 and we received it, and we used the money that they gave us. They gave us $50,000 to take that opportunity to hire a consultant, and he developed a needs assessment for us and a draft action plan. And we've been working away at that for the last, it was approved in 2017, and we've been working away at that for the last several years. We've accomplished a tremendous amount of this on this plan, but we want it to be a live thing. We don't want it to just die. So we want to keep going. And the thing that was awesome about the first grant was our consultant, he wasn't flashy. So we don't have a really flashy plan, but we have a solid plan. And a lot of the other municipalities that have hired this and had hired this individual, he's unfortunately since passed away, but other municipalities that had hired him in the past are now designated World Health Organization age-friendly municipalities, and it's the same kind of formula. Like, it's just like solid good stuff. So we don't need to redo that. We just what we really need is we need some funding to help us engage with our community, because in a time of COVID, I can't go to the long-term care facilities. I can't, have live meetings and community forums at the South Shore Center. And we also have an issue where we used to have a 55 plus center that was very, very active at Parkview and at Allendale. And COVID happened. And so now our 55 plus center has gone virtual. So now we have what's called the Senior Center Without Walls. So what we want to do is we want to use the Senior Center Without Walls. We want to apply for this funding to bump out some of their engagement, to get more people to access their programming, because they're making all these amazing programs, and they're connecting with VON to lead exercise groups, to like Red Cross to do different groups. They've got like crafting group, like all this kind of stuff. I've been going on Fridays to do an age-friendly Friday in the summer, and then I'm on in December to do a HOPE program, which is about mental health. And and we get people, but we don't get a lot of people, and we're like, why aren't we getting so many people? And it's all about engagement. It's like, so, and we need to pay for that. So we need to pay, like, for example, if I wanted to do a mail out to every single like household in the city of Barrie, like with your tax bill or whatever, and to put a just for me to put a little flyer in that said, hey, are you a senior or a person with a disability? Do you want to engage? Do you feel with other people? Do you feel like any of that? If I just wanted to slip that in the mail, that would be $10,000. Isn't that crazy? To me, that's crazy. But it costs money to do these kinds of things. So what we want to do is use our money. Again, it's not very sexy, but we want to use our money to, we don't need to create a needs assessment, because we have the one we used before. We're just going to, use it, and then that'll give us consistent data, because we'll have the data from the previous needs assessment, and we'll use that again, and we'll get new updated data, and on it goes. But what we want to do is we want to use money from the grant to pay for these kinds of engagement activities, to get people made aware of the seniors programming that's available. We want to use it to beef up the technology, because right now the Senior Center Without Walls program is on the phone. Now, some of that is because we've had a lot of seniors who've said, I can't use Zoom. I don't want to use Zoom. I don't know how. But then we have all these other seniors who are like, I have a computer, I just don't know how to do it. So can you teach me how to do it? And the library has a program where they do that. So we can partner with the library. We can partner with the programs. So we would probably need, like, another couple $1,000s for the technology piece, to bump up the technology piece. And then right now, like, stakeholders and volunteers are facilitating programs. So I can facilitate a program on a Friday, because it's part of my job, and that's not going to cost us any money. Heather, what's Heather's last name? Heather Stone from the Red Cross. She can facilitate a program on a weekday, but that's part of her job, right? And she's not going to need any money. But if we wanted to do a program for immigrants who are seniors who need an interpreter, we got to pay an interpreter, and we got to pay for somebody who is going to facilitate that, because or we got to get a stakeholder, a community stakeholder. Like, do you see what I'm saying? So we want to build in a buffer so that we have money for like some of these, like, engagement piece, so to increase the programming for more diverse groups. If we go to Zoom, if we get some money for technology, we can go to Zoom, we can have closed captioning, and we can have ASL. Right now, we have people who are deaf, who are seniors, who can't participate because telephones aren't going to do them any good. And a TTY would suck over a telephone facilitated group. That would be terrible. So, but Zoom, for example, we've done different meetings at the city through Zoom, using ASL interpreters and captioning. And just an exciting thing for anybody who cares, Zoom in the new year is going to have a bot captioning, like a robot captioning. So it's going to be I know, it's awesome. So other platforms like Teams, they have like automated captioning. It's not perfect, but it's like, it is pretty awesome. Like, my boss is actually deaf, and let me tell you, like, if she has to attend a meeting and it's a Zoom meeting, and the person organizing it didn't think about accessibility, then she's SOL. Like, and I feel so bad for her, because she'll even say, this is who I am, this is what I need. And people don't think about it. And then she gets to these big meetings, and then she has to, message the organizer and say, hi, is closed captioning available? I don't see the link. Can you send it to me? And they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't even think about that. And she's like, I sent you an email and I said I was deaf. Like, so it's the fact that that happens even when you tell people ahead of time is just atrocious. So with the Zoom auto, even though it's not going to be perfect, at least it'll allow her to participate. And then, you know, there's a way we can have an ASL provider for people who need that as well. So I think it's kind of exciting. And then for me, for the age-friendly piece, if we beef up the engagement of the seniors that are involved in the programming, I can do virtual engagement with them and say, what do you want to improve about our city for age friendly? Like, and I I know seniors, and I know they're opinionated, and I want that. So the fact that we don't have a lot of people on these senior centers without walls calls shocks me. And I'm like, where are they? Like, they're at home and they're isolated. So that's my big spiel.
Mhm.
You guys have any questions? And if
Cheryl,
you
Do we have this money already, or are we?
no, we're applying for it. I'm applying for a grant
Okay.
with my colleague Jessica Gurley, who is a rec programmer with the Seniors 55 Plus Center. So her and I are putting in a grant. Yes, Louise.
I just think that's a great idea, Cheryl. I
Good.
know that someone was on the call without walls, and they were two seniors, and they had to talk for an hour with two
For two
seniors.
seniors, I
Yeah,
know,
right.
that's bananas.
And I know that Wasaga Beach Library it was really successful in offering Zoom
Yeah.
courses and whatever getting on. I was talking to the librarian there because they're starting third age sometime down
Yeah.
at lifelong learning somewhere. And yeah, and she said it was a very gratifying, and certainly I don't know whether you can build this in, but one of the things we want to do is grandmothers to grandmothers used to meet once a week at Stephen Lewis Foundation.
Oh, I love that.
And so a couple of us from Third Age Barrie are going to offer to do their meetings once a month because they haven't met for so long, and their
Oh my
fundraising is all
gosh,
about
yes.
So whether we could build that into the inclusive communities.
Totally.
as an
Maybe,
example.
yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe you could, maybe you and they could
Yeah.
become part of the senior center without walls, and
Yeah.
then maybe you'd have like more engagement in both.
Okay,
third
I'm talking
age.
to Joanne O'Shea
Yeah.
tonight, so I'll ask her.
Yeah, absolutely. Send me an email, Louise.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that. Carolyn?
Cheryl, I think that with the application for the grant, that's wonderful. But I think the message needs to go out as well, that this is the way of the future.
Yes.
And this is not going to all revert back.
It's not. You're so right. Like, I think it's like 41% by 2030, is it? I think it's 2031. 41% of Ontarians will be over 55. I think, right? I think
Pretty high.
yeah, it's not,
Wow.
you're right. Like, we're not getting any younger.
No, but in the publicity, I think it needs to be very strongly reinforced that this is the way of the future. You might as well.
And that this isn't temporary.
Yeah, so like the engagement, like the engagement piece, the virtual. Yeah, you know what? And thank you for saying that, because I feel that, because everything's been like, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Like, we were supposed to start our engagement process for our new work for this in like February, March, and then we've been like, it's okay, just a couple more months. And now we're in December. And you know what? Even if we have this vaccine, it's not going to go back to normal.
No. Louise?
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of what I've been hearing from, I'm involved with a group across the country around lifelong learning, is talking about the hybrid model. That some people may want to come to a presentation or meeting, but other people may want to join by Zoom.
Okay.
And some people will never maybe feel comfortable again.
That's true. Actually,
Especially
I never thought.
seniors.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Who have immune just various things may never feel comfortable ever.
Okay, so this is a personal story. I have a friend, so it's not just seniors. So I have a friend who is not a senior, and he lives in Vancouver, And like Vancouver, like BC right now is bananas with this COVID thing. Like it's not like because their population, you got to remember, like there's more people driving around Toronto every day than the entire province pretty much, right? Like so the numbers statistically, like they're really high right now. And he's got some health issues, so that he like has compromised immune system. And he has not like so again, we're in the bubble, it's personal. Like I worry that mentally, like he's becoming agoraphobic. Like I don't know if if that can happen, but I think I don't know if he'll ever leave his house again. Like and I worry about him because he's so scared. Like he's afraid to go and get ice cream. Like, you know, he's just, yeah, like and like I can't say anything to be like, oh, come on. Like, because I'm scared too. Like we all are, right? You do what you need to do to get through your day and do your stuff. But for some people who have real sensitivities or health concerns, or who are like older, like I worry about my mother and I worry about my in-laws. You know, I worry about you guys. Like everybody on this call has a vulnerability, right? So I think even when we're back to quote unquote normal times, they're not going to be that normal. Like I think we're all going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do, Cheryl, to get this going?
Okay, so I sent, because I had to also do this spiel to the Seniors Advisory Committee and beg them for their support as well. I sent Tammy the motion that like so Tammy's counterpart for that committee created a motion, because they have like magic clerk speak that they use to make everything official. So if I could get Tammy to read that, and then if you guys agree with it, because what I want to do is when I write my application, I want to say our Seniors Advisory Committee thinks this is a good idea, and our Accessibility Advisory Committee thinks this is a good idea too. Because when we did our first round of engagement with for the age-friendly community plan, I really involved our then Accessibility Advisory Committee, because I really firmly believe that accessible communities work for everybody, right? So I kind of feel like they go hand in hand, like accessibility and age-friendly. That's just the way. Like if you can build something that's going to be accessible to people with disabilities and that seniors are going to use, then everybody's going to use it. Yeah. So if I could get Tammy to read that, and then if you say yes, great, and then that's it.
Cheryl, did you send me something, or am I just going to go by the seniors one?
Just go by with the seniors one. Yeah.
Okay. Now this one says that the seniors
So
advisory,
we'd be
the
so we'd say the
Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Yeah. Thank you.
Support-
Sorry.
the Accessibility Advisory Committee supports the application for funding through the Inclusive Community Grant administered by the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, MSAA, in order to support advancements to the City of Barrie's age-friendly community planning efforts and the Seniors Without Wall program. That's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, that should the funding through the Inclusive Community Grant be successful, city staff report back to the Seniors Advisory Committee, or do you want them to report back to the
Accessibility? Yep.
Okay, all right. Report back to the Accessibility Advisory Committee on the progress of the City of Barrie's age-friendly community planning efforts and the Seniors Without Walls program.
Yeah.
Did I sound okay? Is that it right?
Yes, but Carolyn has a question.
I just have a comment. So you're going to report back to the committees?
Yeah, so I would come back and give you guys like a yay, we got the grant and this is what we're doing, and then like things like that.
But
Sounds right.
Yes, you report back to the committees, but will you also be engaging the committees in how to administer or for feedback regarding the grant? So you report back and say, we got the grant. Will you also say that we will be helping you
No.
distribute?
I would engage with you for needs assessment stuff.
Yeah.
But so you guys, if you wanted to participate in any of the age-friendly like assessments to build our plan, you'd be welcome to. But in our application, I have to say in our application how we're using the money. Like I have to budget it line by line before I even get the money. So I can't get the money and then come back to you guys to ask you how to spend it, because I have to tell the government how I'm going to spend it before they give it to me.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
I endorse very much the proposal that Tammy read out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I support it. Louise and Heather. And Louise has a question?
No.
No? Okay. So yeah, there we go.
Yay. Thank you so much. That's awesome. So I will absolutely keep you posted all along the way. Like I really hope I don't think we'll get the full amount of the grant. Like we're not asking for like I think the full amount is like $60,000, and I think we're probably going to fall around the 30,000, like
Okay.
because really what we want to do is we want to engage our community and get a little technology to do that. But it's kind of exciting because I think if there's something we can do to help, especially during COVID, if there's something we could do to help people actively use these programs, and some of the programs are really neat, then that would be great, because
Yeah.
the 55 plus centers were hopping. Like you couldn't go there any
Yes.
day without, they were so busy.
Yeah.
So like, where are all those people? What are they doing now? You know?
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are at home, right?
That's the
Doing
thing.
nothing.
Like, yeah. So let's help them do something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
For
that's
sure.
great.
You're muted, Heather.
I would encourage you to look for the 60,000.
Can't hear you. Well, this is the
Think
thing,
positive.
Carolyn. The thing is, like, we have to have an expense for it. So if we don't, like, I'm not kidding. Like, they are so anal.
Yes.
Like, so if I can't figure out a way to spend that, then I can't ask for it. But if you have an idea of how I can spend it, send me an email and maybe we'll work it out. Okay? You can
Okay.
help me. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
This is good. I just wanted to say, I think this is brilliant. I'm grateful that you found the grant and have had the time to pull that together for us. And I really value the way that you've set it up in terms of using so many of the existing stakeholders, existing programs, and building off of that. I think Carolyn's point about like the technology is here to stay, the need for technology is here to stay, is probably really crucial in our messaging. And if that needs an additional set of mailing outs, then that would be something that needs to be added to the grant funding. But I think that is something we need to be communicating, because it's a hard sell to make the shift for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it isn't a really necessary sell.
Yeah.
And we've got such good ideas behind us in terms of
Oh, I think Carolyn can't hear you. I
And
get it.
No, I can't either.
So there's something going on with your sound. You're not muted.
No.
Yeah, you're not muted. I can hear. So I don't know. They're not hearing you.
Okay.
Oh, Heather. But thank you. I'm happy. I'm really happy that you feel that way. Thank you so much. And I have to say, I love your Grinch Christmas tree behind you. It's adorable.
Oh, yeah, me too.
That's adorable.
I noticed it too.
I love
Yeah.
it. Yes, that's so cute.
Okay.
So if nobody
Um,
has questions, I think that we can probably that's it. I think Catherine, you could probably adjourn.
I think we probably can adjourn. Everybody cool with adjourning? Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Good
Merry
meeting.
Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas, everybody.
Happy
Happy New-
holidays.
Yes.
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 All the best. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Be
Take
safe.
care.
Thank you.
Bring
Take
on
care.
2021.
Yay, bring it on. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks a lot, Tammy.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.